Imagine the Chicxulub impactor, a mountain of rock 10 kilometers wide, hurtling toward the Yucatan Peninsula at 20 kilometers per second. In our timeline, it struck with the force of 10 billion Hiroshima bombs. But in this reality, a slight gravitational tug from Jupiter shifts its path by a mere fraction of a degree. The sky flickers with a magnificent shooting star, but the impact never comes. The dinosaurs don't look up in terror, they continue their hunt. However, the age of reptiles was already facing a silent enemy: climate change. Even without the asteroid, the world was cooling. The massive inland seas of North America were receding, and the lush tropical swamps were being replaced by temperate forests. In this world, the Tyrannosaurus rex doesn't go extinct. Instead, it evolves. To survive the dropping temperatures, the late Cretaceous giants would have likely developed thicker coats of protofeathers. Imagine a T-Rex not as a scaly lizard, but as a 9-ton terror bird, covered in dark insulating fluff, stalking through a snowy coniferous forest. The giants of the south, the Titanosaurs, would have faced insular dwarfism, shrinking in size to manage energy efficiency as the massive ferns they relied on began to disappear.
In our timeline, the death of the dinosaurs was the great promotion for mammals. We went from being nocturnal, shrew-like creatures to the masters of the planet. If the asteroid misses, that promotion never happens. Mammals in the Neo-Mesozoic remain specialized but small. They exist in the cracks of the dinosaur world, living in burrows, high in the canopy, or under the cover of night. There is no room for the rise of elephants, horses, or primates. Why? Because every ecological niche is already occupied. The cheetah niche, occupied by small feathered dromaeosaurs, raptors.
While the land remains a battlefield of titans, the oceans undergo a radical transformation. Without the mass extinction, the Mosasaur, the apex predator of the Cretaceous seas, remains at the top of the food chain. In our world, whales became the giants of the deep. In the no-asteroid world, whales likely never evolve. Instead, we see the rise of the Cenozoic Plesiosaurs. These creatures, with skulls the size of a car and flippers like airplane wings, would have prevented any small land mammal from returning to the sea to become a whale. The reefs would be patrolled by long-necked Plesiosaurs, while the air above would be dominated not by seagulls, but by the last of the pterosaurs. While birds were already diversifying, the giant Quetzalcoatlus, the size of a Cessna airplane, might have continued to dominate the coastlines, picking off baby dinosaurs like a heron picks off frogs today.
The most controversial theory in paleontology is the dinosauroid. In 1982, Dale Russell proposed that if the Troodon, a dinosaur with a very large brain-to-body ratio, had continued to evolve, it might have become a sentient, upright being. If the asteroid missed, would dinosaurs have developed intelligence? Evolution doesn't always lead to smart, it leads to good enough to survive. However, over 66 million years, the pressure to survive in a changing climate might have forced certain small, social raptors to develop complex communication and tool use. Imagine a descendant of the velociraptor that lives in social tribes, using its opposable killer claw not just for hunting, but for crafting primitive spears. They wouldn't look like lizard men. They would look like highly intelligent ground-dwelling hawks. They would be the humans of this timeline, scavenging, planning, and perhaps eventually discovering fire.
If we fast forward to the present day, the year 2026, in a world without the impact, the Earth is a vastly different place. The landscape. There are no sprawling cities of glass and steel. Instead, the Earth is a mosaic of massive, unbroken jungles and plains. The biodiversity. The megafauna is alive and well. Instead of cows and sheep, the plains are home to herds of Triceratops descendants, acting like reptilian rhinos. Humanity, we do not exist. There was no room for the African apes to leave the trees because the savannas were prowled by lightning-fast, feathered predators.
The missing asteroid is the ultimate reminder of how fragile our history is. We are only here because of a cosmic accident. In the alternative reality, the Earth remains a planet of the dinosaurs, a world of scales, feathers, and ancient roars that never went silent. It is a world of brutal beauty, where the reign of the Titans lasted not for 180 million years, but for 250 million.
As the millions of years rolled by without the asteroid's interference, the Earth did not remain a stagnant tropical greenhouse. The planet began its natural trend toward a cooler climate. In our timeline, this led to the Ice Ages and the rise of woolly mammoths. In the Neo-Mesozoic, it triggered the most significant biological shift since the appearance of eggs, the feathered revolution. The descendants of the Tyrannosaurids and Dromaeosaurids, raptors, were already primed for this. Feathers, which began as simple display ornaments or basic insulation, became as thick and complex as the fur of a Siberian tiger. Imagine a Boreal Tyrant, a descendant of Nanooksaurus. Standing 5 meters tall, this apex predator of the northern latitudes is covered in a dense white and gray plumage that renders it nearly invisible in the swirling snow of a Cretaceous-style winter. Its metabolism has shifted. It is no longer a cold-blooded reptile of old myths, but a high-energy, warm-blooded engine of destruction. It doesn't roar. It lets out a low-frequency vibration that can be felt in the bones of its prey long before it is seen. Meanwhile, the herbivorous hadrosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs, evolved sophisticated nasal passages, not just for communication, but for warming the freezing air before it hit their lungs. They move in herds of millions, migrating across vast plains that look like the modern Serengeti, but scaled up by a factor of 10. If we look at the trajectory of bird intelligence today, parrots and crows, we see that reptilian brains are capable of incredible logic, tool use, and even language. Without the asteroid, the Troodontids, already the geniuses of the Cretaceous, had 66 million years to refine this. By the equivalent of our Miocene era, 20 million years ago, a species we might call Sapiensaur could have emerged. Physicality. They would not look like humans. They would likely be bipedal, with a horizontal posture for balance, utilizing a long, stiffened tail as a counterweight. Their hands would be three-fingered, with an evolved semi-opposable hallux, thumb claw, capable of gripping stones and shaping wood. Social structure. These creatures would be pack hunters by nature. Intelligence in this world didn't come from gathering fruit, like primates, but from the high-stakes coordination required to bring down prey 10 times their size. Culture. Their language would be a complex mix of bird-like chirps, clicks, and colorful skin displays on their crests or throat pouches. They wouldn't build cities of stone. They would be nomadic masters of the forest, using fire to manage the landscape, much like early humans, but with a predatory instinct that makes them far more territorial.
One of the greatest battles in this alternative history takes place in the air. In our world, the extinction wiped out the pterosaurs, leaving the skies open for birds. If the asteroid misses, the battle for the clouds continues for eons. The pterosaurs hold the advantage of sheer size. The descendants of Ashdarchids become the giraffes of the sky. Some species evolve to be so large they rarely fly, instead stalking the plains on all fours, reaching into high trees to snatch nesting mammals or smaller dinosaurs. However, birds have the advantage of maneuverability and rapid reproduction. By the Neo-Eocene, we see a specialized split. The giants, pterosaurs, dominate the high-altitude transoceanic routes and the heavy-lifting niches. The swarmers, birds, dominate the dense jungles and urban-like forest canopies where agility is life. Eventually, the two groups reach a biological stalemate. The sky is a crowded, noisy place, where the red baron of the clouds is a 4-meter wingspan pterosaur with a beak designed to crack the skulls of early eagles.
In biology, there is a concept called niche filling. In our world, the extinction of the dinosaurs left the large land animal niche wide open. Mammals filled it. In the Neo-Mesozoic, there is no vacancy. The great apes might still evolve in the forests of an African-like continent, but they never leave the safety of the trees.
The moment an ape-like creature tries to walk upright on the savanna, it is intercepted by a pack of neo-raptors that are faster, stronger, and more coordinated than any leopard. The human spark, that transition from tree dweller to tool user, is snuffed out before it can even begin. We remain small, clever primates, perhaps the equivalent of highly intelligent squirrels, watching from the high branches as the true masters of the Earth battle for dominance below. The story of the no-asteroid Earth is a story of stability. Dinosaurs reigned for 180 million years before the asteroid. They were not a failed experiment. They were the most successful terrestrial vertebrates in history. If the cosmic dice had rolled differently, their reign might have lasted until the sun itself began to expand. When we look at a bird today, we are looking at a survivor. But in this alternative timeline, we aren't looking at a survivor. We are looking at the king. The Earth remains a wild, terrifying, and beautiful place where the roar of a predator is the highest law, and the age of man is a dream that the universe never had. If intelligence did emerge among the descendants of the Troodontids, it would have followed a path unrecognizable to human history. Our technological progress was driven by our anatomy. Primates have flat feet for stability and hands designed for powerful gripping. A Sapiensaur, however, is a digitigrade predator, a creature that walks on its toes, built for bursts of terrifying speed. Their cities would not be concrete jungles. Instead, they would be arboreal megastructures. Using their claw-tipped fingers and incredible balance, they would weave living trees together, creating vast suspended networks of platforms high above the reach of the larger non-intelligent predators like the descendants of T-Rex. The biotool revolution. Because these creatures would lack the heavy, sedentary lifestyle required for deep earth mining and smelting, they would never enter a Bronze Age or Iron Age. Instead, they would master advanced biotechnology. Selective breeding. Rather than forging a sword, a Sapiensaur might breed a specific species of cactus to grow razor-sharp, obsidian-hard needles for projectiles. Chemical warfare. Having evolved from ancestors with complex glandular systems, they would likely master the use of venoms and pheromones. They could program a swarm of insects to protect their territory, or use corrosive acids harvested from giant stomach-churning beetles to shape wood and bone. In our world, the vacuum left by the extinction of marine reptiles allowed tiny deer-like land mammals, Plesiosaurs, to return to the sea and evolve into the blue whale. In the Neo-Mesozoic, the gates to the ocean are locked and barred. The Mosasaurs, the T-Rex of the deep, did not just survive, they specialized. By the equivalent of our modern era, the oceans are home to Mosasaurs the size of submarines. The deep diver, a lineage Mosasaurs has evolved to hunt in the midnight zone, with bioluminescent skin patterns used to lure prey in the crushing darkness. The icebreaker. In the polar regions, short-necked Plesiosaurs with massive layers of blubber patrol the edges of the ice sheets, leaping out of the water like gargantuan orcas to snatch feathered dinosaurs from the shore. Because these massive reptiles dominate the surface and the depths, mammals never find the safe space to grow large in the water. There are no dolphins, no whales, and no seals. The sea remains a realm of cold-blooded, lightning-fast giants, where the water's surface is a dangerous border that few dare to cross. Plants and animals evolve in a constant arms race. In our world, flowers and fruit evolve to attract birds and mammals. In a world of giants, the forests would look vastly different. The sauropod pruning effect would keep the world's forests in a state of perpetual regrowth. Because massive, long-necked dinosaurs would be constantly stripping the canopy, trees would evolve hyper-regeneration. The ironbark. Trees would develop bark as thick as armor plating to survive the constant scraping of dinosaur teeth. Toxic blooms. Without many mammals to spread seeds, flowers might evolve to be much larger and more pungent, specifically designed to be eaten by small feathered dinosaurs that then carry the seeds miles away in their digestive tracts. The Earth would be a greenhouse on overdrive, with oxygen levels potentially higher than our own, supported by massive, fast-growing fern forests that pump life into the atmosphere. Without the catastrophic shift of the asteroid, the Earth's crust continued its slow dance. In this 2026, Australia is still isolated, a lost world within a lost world, where the most primitive and bizarre dinosaur lineages still cling to life. Antarctica is not a frozen wasteland, but a temperate, dark forest of moss and pine, home to the night stalkers, dinosaurs that have evolved massive, owl-like eyes to hunt during the 6 months of polar darkness. North and South America are linked by a land bridge, but it is a deadly corridor. It is the site of a massive, ongoing faunal interchange where the feathered giants of the north meet the armored titans of the south. This is the most violent ecosystem on the planet, a place where evolution is pushed to its absolute limit. If that asteroid had missed by even a few thousand miles, the story of life on Earth would be a story of scales and feathers, not skin and steel. The stars would still look down on a planet where the king is a 40-foot predator with a coat of iridescent feathers, and where the morning sun is greeted not by the sound of an alarm clock, but by the earth-shaking rumble of a herd of titans moving toward the water. It is a world of terrifying majesty, a world where we, the humans, are not the masters, not the observers, and not even a memory. We are simply the great might have been, a ghost in a timeline that the universe decided it didn't need. The sun rises over the horizon of what we would call the Gulf of Mexico. In our timeline, this is the site of a jagged crater buried beneath layers of limestone. In this world, it is a shimmering, pristine coastline of turquoise water, untouched by oil rigs or concrete hotels. A massive Neo-Mesozoic, 40 meters long, with skin that shimmers like crushed opals, breaks the surface. It exhales a plume of mist that catches the golden light, a solitary sentinel of the deep. It has no fear of harpoons. Its only rivals are the colossal storms and others of its kind. Deep inland, the Great Plains are not covered in wheat, but in a sea of waist-high ferns and genetically ancient grasses. A herd of Magna hadrosaurs, descendants of the duck-billed dinosaurs, moves with the rhythmic thunder of a living earthquake. They are the size of houses, their skin patterned in intricate camouflage of forest green and deep ochre. They don't just graze, they shape the very geology of the continent, their migrations carving paths that rivers will eventually follow. In the high canopy weaver cities, the Sapiensaurs begin their day. There is no roar of engines, no hum of electricity. Instead, there is a symphony of biological signals. A young scout stands on a platform woven from living, bioengineered ironwood. Its feathers are a vibrant crimson, a sign of its status and health. It taps a rhythmic code onto a hollowed-out resonance chamber attached to a fungal network that spans the forest. Miles away, another colony feels the vibration and responds. This is their internet, a slow, organic, but profoundly deep connection to the planet. They look up at the morning star, Venus, with eyes that see colors humans can only dream of. They have no concept of extinction. To them, the world is an eternal, breathing machine, of which they are the conscious part. They do not seek to conquer nature. They have spent millions of years becoming its most refined instrument. Above them, the sky is still shared. A flock of iridescent pterosaurs glide on the thermal updrafts, their wingspans casting long, thin shadows over the canopy. Below them, the smaller, more agile birds, the modern dinosaurs, dart through the leaves, their songs unchanged for eons. This 2026 is a world of perfect equilibrium. There is no climate crisis, for the giants and the forests have co-evolved to balance the carbon. There is no sixth mass extinction, for every niche is filled by a creature that has earned its place through millions of years of trial. As the sun climbs higher, a low, guttural vibration echoes from the deep forest, the call of a king tyrant. It is a sound of absolute authority. The age of reptiles never ended. It simply matured into a masterpiece of biological complexity. The asteroid missed, and in doing so,
the universe allowed the Earth to remain a wild, beautiful, and terrifying sanctuary for the Titans. The story of life didn't need a reboot, it just needed time.